If you're planning to make a break the ice beanie in Tunisian crochet, this is the Tunisian crochet version of the melt the ice beanie that is being used as a fundraiser for people in Minnesota that are affected by ice raids. I will show you how to make a small version of this so you can follow along with the instructions and make your hat, because it's an unusual construction. So it's easier if I show you exactly how to make all the steps, and then you can use the stitch counts in the pattern to make an adult sized version. You can adapt the starting stitch count, the number of rows, to change the circumference and the width of the brim to make this project bigger or smaller depending on what you need. I graded this to 52 centimeters in circumference. That's my head size, and it's a regular common head size in people. So I will be demonstrating using this blue yarn. I hope you can see it well on the camera. For the pattern I used the decay weight yarn. This is the same weight of yarn and a 6mm hook. This ensures that your fabric is thick enough and warm enough to protect against the cold and the wind. And for this small version we will be using the same hook size. I will just make much fewer stitches. We don't use a magic ring because we will be working with rows. So we start with a slip knot on the hook, and if you buy the pattern you will have the stitch counts and the row counts. I will make 5 Tunisian simple stitches in the first row, so I will chain 6 and pick up loops in the back bumps of all the chains. That means we have 7 loops here, and then chain 1, yarn over, pull through 2 to do the return pass. That's the first row, and we don't have the brim, the elastic part yet, because it's easier to keep track of what you have to do. If you want to, you can do it all in one, but it's easier if you make a small one. First you see what you have to do, and then you can add the brim at the same time. Okay, the next row we make Tunisian simple stitches until we have 1 stitch left to make, not including the edge of the work. This is the last Tunisian simple stitch, and we will make a Tunisian simple stitch back front, which is an increase, and I have a separate tutorial on the channel for that now. So we go behind the back vertical bar of the stitch, pick up a loop, and then behind the front vertical bar, pick up a loop. This creates an increase, so we have 1 extra loop on the hook, and then we do the last stitch. We go with the hook behind the 2 vertical bars on the edge and draw up a loop, and then we chain 1 and then yarn over, pull through 2 to return. Now we will repeat this row until we reach 1/4 of the desired circumference. I will make at least 3 more rows. So we make simple stitches until there is 1 stitch left to work, and then we do an increase in the back and the front. Then the last stitch behind the vertical bars on the edge, pick up a loop, chain 1, yarn over, pull through 2, and again Tunisian simple stitch across, until there is one stitch left, and your work will have a weird curl. That's okay. So we increase, last stitch, and then the return pass. As we make these rows with increases, you will notice that the work goes like this, and that's expected and normal. Don't worry about it, because we will compensate for that when we do the decreases. And once again, Tunisian simple stitches across. Until there is one stitch left to work, increase. If you want to, you can make the increase one stitch away from the edge, but then you also have to do the decrease one stitch away from the edge as well. It's your choice. Okay, so that's 5 rows. Maybe I should make one more, just so we have a nice big enough sample here. That's 6 rows. Now we will start the second half of one side, and we will be making decreases along the same edge where we made the increases. So we make Tunisian simple stitches until we have 2 stitches left to work, not including the last stitch, which is on the edge. So you see there are 2 stitches here left. Insert the hook behind the 2 vertical bars, draw up a loop. This is a Tunisian simple stitch 2 together. Then we make the last stitch as usual, and we do the return pass as usual. Now we will repeat this until there are as many stitches as we had in the starting row minus 1. So I will have 6 loops on the hook at the end. So now we decrease, and then the normal return pass. Again. There are 2 stitches left to work, so we decrease, last stitch, and return pass. Now you see we have 7 loops, so we need to make one more of these decreased rows. And that will serve as the pivot row for when we change the side that we're working on for the hat. Now there are 6 loops, so this is the last row on this side. As you can see, now we have 12 rows, and on the other side we will also have 12 rows, starting with a row that is like the first one. In the first row on the other side we will have 7 loops, and here it looks like there are 8 loops, but in fact 2 of these loops belong to the same stitch. So we will start working on the other side, and for this you continue working like before and we start increasing. So we have Tunisian simple stitches until there is 1 stitch left to make here, and we make an increase. And now instead of inserting the hook behind the 2 vertical bars on the edge here, we insert them behind the 2 vertical bars on the row below and draw up a loop. And then we yarn over, pull through 2 instead of doing the chain 1 and yarn over, pull through 2. This is a short row return pass. And you will see that as we work these rows, the short row return pass will replace a seam. Again, we increase in the last stitch. If you need to, you can put a stitch marker in this stitch so that you don't miss it. And we insert the hook behind the 2 vertical bars in the next row below. And then we yarn over, pull through 2 to do the short row return pass. Let me place a stitch marker here because things can get confusing here. So we have a marked stitch. I don't close the marker, but if you have long rows you should close it. So Tunisian simple stitches until we reach the marked stitch. We increase in the marked stitch, and then we pick up a loop here in the next row, and then do the short row return pass. That's 3 rows made. So we go up to 6 in my sample. That's 4. Five. And 6. If you look at the project now, it doesn't look like a hat, but it's getting there. So if you fold the fabric, you will see that it's almost there. Okay, so now we start the rows with decreases. And just like before, we make simple stitches until we have 2 stitches left to work, not including the edge stitch. So we look here, where was the last increase? This was the last increase. So we do a Tunisian simple stitch 2 together here. And we continue the edge stitches by inserting the hook in the end of the next row. Then we do a short row return pass. Then we repeat this until the loops on the hook are the same number as the number we started with, -1. So just like in the first half, we stop on a slightly shorter row than the one we started with. As you can see, there are 7 loops here, so I will make one more row. And here we can make a regular return pass by inserting the hook in the same space as the previous row, chain 1 and then yarn over both through 2. This will be the edge row, or you can do it with a short row return pass as well. It's your choice here. So this is what the piece looks like now, and we don't seam it up yet, but we continue with the brim, and to do that we slip stitch into the first stitch of the first row, making sure to also go behind the third loop on the back. So we go behind the 2 loops here, and then the third loop on the back, which is actually the last chain in the return pass. Now you will chain as many as you need to make the brim of your choice. I will make it a narrow brim, let's say 4 stitches. So 4 chains, pick up loops in the back bumps of the chains, and pick up 1 loop in the same place where we started the chain, and then yarn over both through 2 to the return. This is the short row return pass. Then we'll start making the ribbing, and it uses 2 rows of Tunisian knit stitch, 2 rows of Tunisian reverse purl knit stitch, and I have separate tutorials for both of them. So we make another row of Tunisian knit stitches, and we insert the hook behind the first stitch of the next row, picking up the third loop as well, and do a short row return pass. And then we make 2 rows of Tunisian reverse purl knit stitches. That's what I call them, because you bring the yarn to the front as if to make a purl stitch. Insert the hook from the back towards the front as if to make a reverse stitch, and we insert between the 2 vertical bars as if to make a knit stitch. So it's much easier to make than to explain. Just go like this between, from the back to the front, and pick up a loop. Then we anchor this in the next row and do a short row return pass, And we repeat this row. And anchor it in the next row. And then do a short row return pass. Then we make 2 rows of Tunisian knit stitches. Anchor it in the next row. And no matter what row count you have for your hat, if you need to adapt the size, you will always have a multiple of 2 rows on the front and multiple of 2 rows on the back. So even if you have 14 rows on the front and 14 on the back, you will still have enough rows to make a 2x2 ribbing. If you want to, you can make a 1x1 ribbing or a 3x3 if you have the correct number of rows for 3x3. But I like the 2x2 for this pattern. It's elastic, doesn't lose its shape, and it looks nice. It doesn't look like a knit ribbing, but it is what it is. So we repeat these 4 rows all around, and then I will show you how to seam them up using the tapestry needle. I also have separate video tutorials on how to seam either Tunisian simple stitch rows or Tunisian knit stitch rows, and you will need both techniques because the brim has Tunisian knit stitches and the main body has Tunisian simple stitches. And the pattern also comes with some graphics that I created to show you where to insert the needle to make these 2 types of seams. But I will also show you here in the blue yarn. As you can see, the ribbing works up pretty fast. It's a very easy type of ribbing in Tunisian crochet, and you can attach this to other projects as well. But you have to do it sideways. Now I have 2 more rows of Tunisian reverse purl knit stitches to make, and then we can seam the brim and the body. So that's the ribbing finished. And I will cut the yarn with enough to have at least twice as much as the seam, and then some yarn for weaving in. Pull this tail through and leave the hook aside, and pick up a tapestry needle, pass the end through, and now we have the 2 types of seams as I told you. Here we have Tunisian knit stitches, and here we have Tunisian simple stitches. First we create an invisible seam here on the edge. So we go with the needle behind these 2 loops here, and then back into the starting position. That creates a loop here on the edge. Now we go through the fabric and we have to look at the stitches. This is a Tunisian knit stitch, so we go with the needle under the 2 loops corresponding to it. Then we go into the last row here, and we go behind the front vertical bar of the first stitch and behind the back vertical bar of the second stitch. Then we go back to the first row here, and we go with the needle behind the 2 vertical bars that belong to the second Tunisian knit stitch. We go back to the last row and go behind the front vertical bar of the second stitch and the back vertical bar of the third stitch. And we continue like this until the seam is finished, and this will create an invisible seam in the Tunisian knit stitches. And this looks very much like grafting in stockinette in knitting. So we have reached the last stitch here, and you can go with the needle behind the front vertical bar of the last stitch in the knit stitch portion and come out through the return pass chain here. And now we will move on to seaming the Tunisian simple stitches. We go to the first row and go through the return pass chain and under the vertical bar here. And we can turn the work so that the gap faces you like this, and you go under the corresponding vertical bar on the other side in the last row, and then go through the return pass chain from under the vertical bar here and under the vertical bar on the other side. We repeat this until the gap is closed, and make sure you get the corresponding stitches here. That's the last stitch. Now you can insert the needle through the fabric and go to the back of the work so that you can weave in the ends there on the back. And that's the hat. You can turn it inside out to weave in the ends. You can weave in the ends like this, back and forth, or like this. I prefer it along the rows because it doesn't affect the elasticity of the hat. If you make it across the rows, then you might get some tension when you try to put the hat on. I have a separate tutorial that shows you how to weave in ends in Tunisian crochet. And you do this for both ends. Okay, now if you want to add the tassel, you can use the needle to pull some threads through the top here, the longest row. Let me do that. You want a multiple of 3 pieces of yarn to make the tassel. So I will have 3. Make sure they're long enough to make the tassel of the length that you want. I have a needle with a bigger eye, so I can pass all of them through at the same time. Get them the same length. Make a simple knot just to secure them. Then divide them into 3 equal sets and braid them together. Ideally, your hat will be heavier and it will allow this process to work faster, easier. And when you're happy with the length of your braid, you will make a knot. And secure this here in place. And cut the threads to make them the same length. If you want to, you can wear the hat like this. It has a nicer shape. And that's the hat. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and that you will contribute to the fundraiser by buying the pattern for the big hat. All proceeds go to charity. I don't sell the pattern. The yarn shop, Needle and Skein in Minneapolis, are selling the pattern, so they will donate the proceeds to charities that work with people who are affected by the raids there. And if you can do more, do more. Talk to your representatives. Go out and help the people who live in your neighborhood if they need it. Ask what you can do if anyone needs your help and you can provide it. I hope this brings a little bit of hope and that things change for the better in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon with another tutorial.